Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, LinkedIn. Welcome back to another episode, Value First Data with Clemen. I am again co-hosting. I guess this is a co-host situation.
Yeah.
As Clemen and I continue to investigate what the Value First path looks like and how data can support us there, right? That's basically what we're doing.
Yeah, a good overview.
Is that what we're doing here?
Looks like Chris allowed you to, join me again. So
Chris did
you
allow
did a
me to
good
join
job.
again. Yeah, if you caught us last week, Chris told me, quote unquote, if it goes well, maybe you can join on a reoccurring basis. And I got the reoccurring invite this morning. So he took the full week to really think it through, but we made it.
Yeah, glad to have you again here.
Thank you. If you missed last week, we talked about the first stage in the value path, which is your screen. Wondering. So last week we talked about the audience stage, which is the I am learning stage. And these are people who might land on your website from your blog, maybe even from AI nowadays, where they were researching something that you happen to talk about and landed on your website. They're not really in a buying cycle. They just had a question that you just so happen to have the answer to. But today we're moving on from the audience and over to the researcher. And these are going to be individuals moving into purposeful investigation, actively seeking understanding. As Oakes notes, this is a lot less pressure, a lot more active and intentional. They're saying, I have some things in my business that might be applicable. Important to note here, these are not hand raisers yet. As you can see, that's where we'll be back next week. But I think that's an important distinction up front.
And I think a good opening for a question I wanted to start with, which is scoring and the challenges around scoring.
Yes.
You're the scoring expert. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. I see how things can go wrong, especially now the audience is more of, hey, I'm just looking around.
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning, so you're not necessarily doing a lot of things, let's say, on the website. But when you're at the researcher stage, you are kind of actively researching. You're still not at the hand raiser or the hero stage. We'll get to that, but scoring can quickly point out those to be in the active buying mode. How do you see an approach of that?
Yeah, I mean, I often say hand raisers are the easiest to score. Those are just, I mean, like, they are people who have asked to talk to your sales team. It is a lot more nuanced when we get into these researcher and audience stages. I think, and I think I mentioned this last week, that from a scoring perspective, your goal is, I think, your goal is almost to get rid of this audience stage. Like, how can you exclude them from getting positive scores? And that's, to me, how you differentiate using a score to identify like researchers from just an audience. You look at the behavior on your website, and then you, in my opinion, exclude anything that is more of the like, I'm learning. And to me, that looks like, how many times have they visited my website? Like, having a minimum, not just scoring them every time they visit my website. And the first time they land on my blog, not necessarily giving someone a score for that, but instead scoring them once they reach our blog like a couple times. I know I I keep using myself as an example. I mean, what else am I to do? But I talk a lot about lead scoring. I have a lot of lead scoring content. Once someone starts visiting my website, visiting my lead scoring content multiple times, that is to me an indication that they are in the researcher stage. They're not just like passively audience stage. The other piece, and this might get me kicked off the show, actually, once Chris hears this, is the gating of content. And this is a delicate balance because like you have to decide when to gate. And people in the audience stage, I'm learning, are going to be we talked about this last week. They're going to be unlikely to give you information. They're going to be unlikely to give you reliable information. They might give you like their junk email address or something like that. Hopefully, by the time people are in the researcher phase, they feel like they've learned something from you. So these are the people that might be willing to give you accurate data. So from that standpoint, like you oftentimes may not even have people in the audience stage to score because you don't have them saved in your CRM. Did that answer your question, or did I just dance around your question?
Yeah, no. I think it's a good way in. I would agree with that. That when you're at the researcher stage, is where you are, let's say, convinced about someone you're researching, a consultant, a product, a website, to the extent that you are spending more time, you're going down the rabbit hole on that website. Download white papers, download PDFs, and because you're in the researcher mode, you're willing to share your own data. It doesn't mean that I'm a hand raiser or a hero. I'm not necessarily in the buying mode, but I feel already comfortable sharing who am I to you, because I am actively learning and I'm convinced I want to learn more. That's why I'm researching further. And the other part, as I see, is also different parts of the website might be indicating that. If it's a high level blog post which is relevant for the audience stage, if they visit it, fine. But if they start digging deeper and they go in the more technical, maybe white papers, that might be a sign that yes, they are in the researcher stage. So the number of website visits or blog posts read might be still the same, but the quality or the intent of what they're searching and what they're downloading might be different, which might indicate they're at the researcher stage. And to the gating part of the content, which I think the whole value first approach is, this is where you should still provide a lot of value for free, not necessarily even gated, because they are researching on their own.
Yeah, so I think you're right. And like when we look at the researcher stage, this is beyond blog visitors now. We're talking pricing page visits, things like that. I know, Clement, you had mentioned you can tell if someone's really interested because they start visiting like your terms of use or terms of service pages.
Privacy
pages, yeah. Demo pages are also going to come in here, and I think this is where most people, respectfully, get it wrong with gating. So often we're gating our demo, and it's just stopping people from becoming hand raisers who may otherwise be hand raisers. There's a time and a place. Obviously, you're gonna at some point often provide a custom demo, and you will need their contact information probably to facilitate that. But do you need to gate your demo video? I would almost always argue no.
For the generic high level 5 minutes demo, there's no point of gating it. That's our approach. Let's say on our website, there are 5-minute short videos overview of the system, which is, I believe, good enough and deep enough for you to understand and evaluate what it is about, but to really understand the power and the potential and evaluate if that is relevant for you, we ask you to go on a demo, but not to gate it, but to explain you, because it's not a one-click solution. So where your platform is more technical, or if your SaaS system is not like, okay, this is a to-do list of something which is super straightforward, and in 3 minutes you can clearly explain what it is. If you need 15 minutes to walk through in a structured way, then at that point I think it makes sense to have a demo or a thorough demo gated. But yeah, the initial overview should definitely not be gated. Let them figure it out, like you do in a share content on LinkedIn. It's for the same purpose, to evaluate, to go further. And with all the AI research and everything, it will be more and more important.
Yeah, and whenever people talk about ungating generally, there's a lot of fear behind it, because people feel so invested and in their email lists and their NQL counts and things like that. But the problem with that is that we're talking about email lists and MQL counts. We're not talking about customers. We're not talking about sales. And oftentimes the people who are going to see your demo and want to buy are going to still do that, whether or not they gave you their email or not, off the bat. And in fact, you're going to have more people seeing your demo, which in theory, assuming that your demo is well done and explains things well, and that your product is well done, assuming all of those things, you'll also, you'll see better results.
I saw a post from, I don't know, from someone from HubSpot, or from someone talking about HubSpot, I guess yesterday on LinkedIn, where it was, HubSpot claims the number of demos went down, but the quality and the kind of the conversion from demo to paid, and the close time when improved, because a lot of research is happening elsewhere, not necessarily through the demo. If you're omnipresent, if you if you play the loop game, people do research on their own, and when they really raise their hand and when they're at the hero stage, they're far further in everything, and you have the credibility, and they already made their mind, so they're further down in the pipeline, if you will. But when you're a researcher, it's really important for you as a researcher to just confirm the trust, the tone of voice of that company, the consistency, to align your mind with what they're saying, what their solution is. So then you're then ready to raise the hand and go to the next stage when you are ready.
Yeah, I mean, I think from like audience to research is when people go from like, do I think this person, brand, whatever, has valuable things to say, to does this person or brand have value to buy? Like, and that's what they're starting to try to like, that's what they're starting to figure out in this stage. They have not figured it out by the end of this stage. You know, we're not saying hand raisers. I mean, it says I'm ready, I'm buying. That doesn't necessarily always mean I'm buying you. Um,
Right.
they could still be evaluating you and your competitors, but it does mean they're saying, I'm in a buying cycle.
Yeah. And how Loop fits into all that, and then just omnipresence and everything. If your voice, if your positioning is consistent on different channels, on your website, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, wherever you manage to be, it things will be easier, because when they'll be researching on different platforms at their own time, and they will puzzle up what they see, and you will build a credibility if you're consistent in what you're saying and how you position yourself. And they will at some point go deeper with your content, with your case studies, with engaging even maybe on your content on LinkedIn. Maybe they'll make a connection request. It doesn't mean they're hand raisers, but they just keep seeing you for the same topic over and over again on their feed. So they're saying, as a researcher, okay, I'm learning about a topic from that person, so I will just connect to make sure I keep seeing that content on my feed. And that's where the consistency of your messaging is super important.
So we mentioned that loop, there is a loop at each of these stages. What does the loop look like at the researcher stage, and how is that different than the audience stage? I can give my answer if I'm putting you on the spot, Clement.
I think it's that consistency of your messaging across all the channels, and thorough and concrete case studies, solutions, how you help others, proof points, social proof, and kind of more deep content, for better or worse, whatever that is. So there's are not that high level overviews, which are for the people in the audience, but when they kind of start to feel the pain, if you can help them understand better that pain, or even uncover the real pain, or pull them further into the research, this is what kind of express tailor part of the loop can help you at that researcher stage. To the amplify, as I said, consistency across all different channels, where they will remember you about something, and then evolve is when they move to the hand raiser, you might see what they asked or what else they wanted to get, or when you have a demo that we talked about, when they already are past the researcher stage. I would say the evolve part of the loop at the researcher stage is happening, because you're getting feedback, you're getting more requests. If after a demo they would say for some details about your compliance, or something, this is okay, maybe I should talk about the compliance stuff more openly. So when they're at the researcher stage, they can already gather that, and they're kind of calmed down that yes, it makes sense to keep the conversation going with that provider.
Yeah, I think that's all really good stuff. I think you're spot on. To me, at this stage, we start at that express yourself. I think you're totally right. Like, I think you're just expressing yourself in a deeper way than you were at the audience stage. This is where, again, those not demo forms, those demo videos might come in. The the case studies, so any social proof, like that's where you are at this stage. And then you might be tailoring the approach, but not necessarily. It doesn't have to be so personalized, because you still may not know the individual at this point, and you don't have to. But you can still segment your content by roles and industries that can be self-selected. Like, that's where you'll see menu navigations that will show you use cases by industries and use cases by your role. I think that's very important content for this research stage. And that's where maybe you have technical documentation. And even if you don't think that's important to your audience, and that's where some of this like self-selection is going to kind of come into play. So for me, the tailoring your approach is having diverse content for people within the buying committee, even when you don't know who those individuals are. And then amplifying your reach is going to be making it easy for people to go from audience to researcher but the the caveat there is it should be easy, but it shouldn't be like in their face. Like, it shouldn't be annoying.
And
Easy
not
without
necessarily gated.
And not necessarily gated, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, just a thought before it slips through. For the tailor part, how I like to also think about LinkedIn posts. I attended a workshop from one of those LinkedIn gurus, and I think he made a really good point. Think about he calls them signpost. When you're creating a content, when you're making a post on LinkedIn, think about who is your target persona for that concrete post, and make it clear, I don't know, first 3-4 lines, that someone who starts reading that understands if that is for them. And that can be, hey, this content is for sales leaders. If you're a marketing leader, just go away. This is for that persona or for that industry. That's kind of signpost in a way that when you're driving, if you turn left, you immediately know if that was the right turn or not. Like here, as you said, if you want to tailor for specific personas, for specific audiences, that's how you can also think about. So think for whom you're writing that content piece.
Yeah. I know we need to wrap up, but just to bring us down to earth and to implementation, Carmen, I think you touched on this on like from a data perspective. If we're not tracking the volume of our form submissions for demos, like 5-minute demos, if we're not gating stuff and building our like email list in traditional ways, how can we measure if we're seeing any progress in researchers, and if we're getting people to researcher stages?
Good question. Part of it is when people move to the hand raiser stage, do they kind of tell you they've been seeing your content? That's how I feel comfortable and kind of calm down about my activities on LinkedIn. When people connect and we start chatting over DMs, they mention, hey, I've been seeing your content for a while now on my feed. That's why I reached out, which is okay. It's consistent enough that they want to keep the conversation going or even start a conversation. I don't think necessarily there is a hard numeric data, because if you don't know who those people are, I think you can just kind of retrospectively understand if what you're doing at audience or researcher stage makes sense when they come to the hand raiser, where they show up, they book a demo. So yeah, it's not necessarily something you need super rigorously measure by numbers.
Yeah, I think it's almost, and again, this is not, I know this isn't a number either, but I think it's how easy that hand raiser conversation is. Like, are people showing up for whatever your hand raiser conversation is, and are they like, all I want to know is how much you cost, because my boss asked me to evaluate all these tools and I need to include the cost and I couldn't figure it out from your website. Like, that's all I want to figure out. And then they're just like, leaving the conversation or checking out from the conversation from there. Or are they like are people showing up to those hand raiser conversations with genuine interest? I think that's, to me, how you know if you've done your research or justice.
Yeah. Maybe interesting data just came to my mind is, if you have the demo, they can book the percentage of demo no shows can kind of indicate, if that's high, if people book a call but they don't show up, then probably there's something missing. You didn't do everything before that you should. But if that show up rate is high, then I would say you're doing a good job at audience and research stage with everything you're doing.
Yeah. All right. I think that's fair. I think my takeaway from today is not to stress the data in these first two stages. I know this is value first data. But I think my takeaway from the last 2 weeks, Clement, is that I think people care too much about the data in these first two stages, and that's causing them to put friction into the buying experience because they care more about the data than providing a good buying experience.
And value.
Yeah.
That's my kind of takeaway. I was speaking at a conference last week, and I got a question. How and what do you necessarily need to measure when you're building your brand, and it goes to audience research stage. And my answer was don't stress too much, don't try to measure things that don't need to be measured. Rather focus on be there, build the brand, build the voice, amplify, and you'll have other metrics which are more important for your business down the line at all the further stages. Hand raiser starting next week. The discussion we'll have. This is where more solid data can be collected, measured, and then evaluated. It will be way more actionable for everyone involved.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, next week we'll be back. We'll be talking about hand raisers. This is where I think a lot of this data really comes into. We get to see the fruits of our labor in the first two stages, I think, in the hand raiser stage. And I'm really excited to take a look.
To get to the data discussion at the value first data.
To get to the data. All right. Have a good day, everyone.
Tracy.
We'll see you next week.
Thanks everyone. Take care.
Waves.